Hello, I'm Lisa Uyeda, the Collections Manager at the Nikkei National Museum and Cultural Center, and joining me is Jeffery Chong, Film Conservation Technician.
Hi there.
Our museum is located in Burnaby, BC, and I'm grateful to join you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and in particular, the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam First Nations. As uninvited guests, we offer this acknowledgement as a means to embrace continuous dialogue, education, and action in support of truth and reconciliation. Our museum is a nonprofit institution with a small core staff. We are dedicated to our mission to honor, preserve, and share the history and heritage of Japanese Canadians and Japanese culture in Canada. And we are home to the largest community-driven repository of Japanese Canadian archival records and personal belongings in Canada.
Most of the films at the Nikkei National Museum are home movies. Home movies come in many formats and sizes, on reels and cores, and in a variety of cans, containers, and boxes. This is our workstation for viewing and repairing the home movies in our museum collection. When films are prepped and ready for digitization, they are scanned at a high resolution off-site at a local digitization house. Once digitized, the films are permanently placed in long-term storage in cans that allow good ventilation. The digitized versions can be made accessible for education, exhibits, research, and screenings such as this one.
These films were created by Tomojiro Inouye between 1930 to 1956 and are the only known films to document a family's experience immediately before, during, and after the forced uprooting and dispossession of Japanese Canadians during the Second World War. In 2006, the films were left at our reception desk with no note, so we added them as an orphan collection in our backlog. 10 years later, during a donor interview with Sumiko Kamachi, we asked if they had donated with us before. To our surprise, Sumiko began describing the small collection of 6 8mm film reels. It took us a decade and sheer luck to reconnect the incredible collection to the Inouye family. A little bit about the creator, Tomojiro Inouye. In 1914, at age 15, Tomojiro Inouye left Kagoshima, Japan, to explore a new life in Canada. He settled on Vancouver Island, and by the 1930s, he was a naturalized Canadian living near Duncan, BC. He worked as a contractor for Mayo at Mayo Lumber Limited in Pauldie, BC. Many Japanese Canadians were employed by Mr. Singh and lived together in Pauldie's diverse community. Tomojiro Inouye married Mitsue Yonemura and had 4 children before she passed away at the young age of 24. A year later, in 1938, Tomojiro Inouye traveled to Japan and married Tomi Takayama. They returned to Canada together and had 4 children, 8 altogether. Tomi Inouye and her son Shoji are in the center frame. Shoji is walking towards the camera, and Tomi is seated behind her with her son Takeshi beside her. Shoji was born in June 1940, so this film was created about a year later. Pictured here are other Japanese Canadians dressed in semi-formal clothing and likely on the boardwalk in Pauldie. During the Second World War, the Canadian government forcibly removed 22,000 Japanese Canadians from the West Coast. The Inouye family were forcibly removed from their home on July 27, 1942, taking only what they could carry to the Sandon internment camp in an old derelict mining town. They were forced to leave behind a truck, property, furniture, tools, food, and personal household belongings, including this film. Almost all of their possessions were forcibly sold by the BC Security Commission and at auction between 1942 to 1945. On the dock, Tomi Inouye, wearing the lighter coat, carries Shoji. Takeshi follows close behind. The woman in the darker coat is Yumi Inouye, who is the wife of Tomojiro Inouye's cousin, Eiji Inouye. The woman in the dark dress is Yumi Inouye. The man in the hat is Eiji Inouye, Tomojiro's cousin. And the baby is Yumi and Eiji's son, Akira Inouye. A group of people are sorting freshly caught perch fish. Sumiko Inoue, in the polka dot dress, holds up a perch along with her stepmother Tomi, pictured in the white apron. Sumiko's brother Seiji is across from her in suspenders and a striped shirt. Smiling at the camera is Masanobu Kawahira. Across from him is Tomojiro Inouye, wearing glasses and a hat. Standing behind Masanobu is Tomojiro's father, Josuke Inouye. The boy next to them in the white sailor cap is Tomojiro's eldest son, Masaru. And the boy in the double-breasted shirt on the left is either Shoji or Takeshi. Tomi Inoue and daughter Sumiko are wearing kimono and are walking around the garden in their front yard. Masaru is seen next to growing corn. Tomojiro captures a vibrant sunset from their yard, and visitors come by to pick flowers. In 1942, Tomojiro left his camera and 6 film reels with Mayo Singh. In 1944, the Inouye family moved from Sandon to the Lemon Creek internment camp, where they lived in a makeshift shack built upon leased farmland. Sometime in 1944 to 45, Tomojiro received his camera and began capturing life in the internment camp. It was illegal for Tomojiro to own a camera, let alone film inside the internment camp without permission. The only other films created by Japanese Canadians during the war years were created by various ministers at the request of the Canadian government. A group of children stand in front of a shack 2 doors away from the Inouye's in Lemon Creek. An older Sumiko comes out of the shack carrying her baby brother, followed by a young woman and her father. Tomi comes out right after and holds her son Kazuo, who was born in 1946 in the internment camp. Surrounding the family are friends. The war ended in 1945, but the restrictions imposed on Japanese Canadians remained until April 1, 1949. As a result, the Inouye family stayed in Lemon Creek until the camp closed in 1946. Denied the right to return to their home, the government forced Japanese Canadians to choose between moving east of the Rockies and leaving BC, or being exiled to Japan. Here we see people leaving Lemon Creek by train, headed to Vancouver before being deported to Japan. 4,000 Japanese Canadians were exiled, more than half were children. Those who wanted to return to their home country of Canada had a difficult time getting permission to return in the 1950s. And it wasn't until the 1960s when all restrictions on immigration were removed, even though they were Canadians. The Inouye family moved to the Bay Farm internment camp for a few months before moving to Sidmouth, BC, near Arrowhead. They didn't stay long, and after 5 months in Sidmouth, the family settled in Vernon. They managed to avoid the forced removal from BC and stayed in Vernon until their return to the coast in the 1970s. Tomojiro Inouye died in 1985, 3 years before the federal redress acknowledgement. It is remarkable that we have access to these films. Some have risked disposal through dispossession, undergone decades of unfavorable storage conditions, and survived times of socio-political instability. Totaling just shy of 49 minutes, these films by Tomojiro Inouye is one of the rarest film collections capturing a decade-long injustice in Canada.